Hello and welcome to Offbeat with me, Sandy Rich. Yeah, this is the program where I bring on men and women from different parts of the world, different walks of life, different age groups who are doing something a little off the beaten track. That's why it's called Offbeat. And I find when I speak to these people, I'm absolutely fascinated by their life's journey. And what also interests me, and in fact intrigues me, is that they carry on doing what they think is good for them. So that actually takes a lot of courage. And sometimes people, when they see individuals like this, it's like, oh, they don't have any focus. They're just trying one thing or the other. They are drifters. They're not doing anything. Because you know why? We've been so conditioned from the time that we are children that we have to be focused. We must have a goal. We cannot change it. We cannot jump off the track because then we'd be considered what others call a failure. And here I have this set of people who are trying new things, who are experimenting, and who have actually the courage to say, you know what, this is not working for me. So I'm just going to try something else. So in some cases, people will say, oh, they don't know what they want. But actually, they do. And they're looking for it and they're going to find it. And I'm going to bring on this gentleman that I met recently. And I was very intrigued because he's quite a young person, but he has had so many different situations in his life that I thought to myself, oh my God, I must have this guy on because he's going to absolutely rock off beat with Sandy. So I'm going to bring him on and he's going to introduce himself to you. So, welcome, my dear, to Offbeat with me, Sandy Rich. And please introduce yourself to our fabulous viewers.
My name is Amit Shahani. I'm the founder of the Rise Festival. But in essence, I'm actually someone who likes to enjoy the passage of time. And through my life's journey, I've been through various modalities, various realms of mind, body, and soul. I've graced the screen as an actor. I have transitioned seamlessly from corporate world to entrepreneurship and found a new calling as a transformational coach. And offering guidance to luminaries and visionaries across the board. I believe that my personal experience of transforming pain into purpose is something that a lot of people can relate to, connect with, because whatever I do, I tend to follow my heart, which is something most people don't understand because we're all about logic. And here I am enjoying this essence of time.
Well, actually, you made a very, very valid point. Follow your heart instead of follow the logic. And we've been actually taught so much about just being logical. And if we follow our heart or our emotions, it's like, oh no, you're too wishy washy. You're not focused. You don't know what you're doing. You're not going for it. But you shared with me there were some pivotal moments in your life that have actually shaped you. So could you please share with us what those are?
It's interesting because I always thought of myself as an outcast. Call it the black sheep of the family, call it the one that stands out, maverick, as you can relate to with someone you know as well, Sandy. We both know actually. And I think that it's all about embracing our uniqueness, which is what this walk of life is, to understand who we truly are. Whilst we meet people, go through different rooms, and actually try and understand why am I here? So I think this has been part of my journey, and I really would like to help other people understand the same.
So can you share with us certain incidents that took place when you were, I think, still a teenager, right?
Yes. So it started off when I was a kid, where I obviously was always misunderstood. Even though I wanted to convey a message, it was always looked on the sidelines because what does a teenager really know? And that's just how the programming has always been. And these pivotal moments of not being understood by the people that might be the closest is where most of us tend to suppress our emotions. And I had this unknowing within me that I'm here to experience the spectrum of my emotions, not just feel the emotions as they are. So yes, those pivotal moments of at teenage age where I was going through family functions, things as such, I was always looked at differently. And at first I was like, why is this happening to me? Until I learned to embrace it. And, could be comments from people that are way older than me, could be different rooms that I'm walking in, and how people would sort of judge and look at you and form a perception of you in their mind. So that at a very young age taught me to become a little self-aware, to understand that regardless of what anyone is saying, I need to still take that information, see if it resonates with me, and if it doesn't, throw it out the window. Otherwise, take it on board as wisdom. So yes, that was in my teenage years where I experienced a lot of hate, a lot of misunderstood um, situations. So yes, that was one of it.
So, did you have any kind of physical setbacks as well?
Oh yes, yes. The biggest pivotal moment I had was at the age of 13, when I was with came down with a very significant kidney infection, where the doctors had raised their hands up, and my mother, who had a colleague who was also like an auntie to me, she asked a priest to come pray for me. And when he came, he said that, may Christ bless you. And I actually felt a frequency of Jesus Christ come through in that room, pass through where I was laying in bed. And miraculously, I was released the next day, where the doctor said, this is a miracle. We don't know what happened exactly, but he is fully functional. So, yes, from being on the deathbed to being out of the hospital within a span of a day after someone's prayers, that changed my life's perspective quite a bit.
So, and you were pretty young at that time, a teenager still trying to find himself, what he wants to do, all of that. So, how would you describe your school and university years? Because, a lot of us who've gone through life, and those of us who are looking for something new, we've always had some kind of a challenge when it was in school and at university, because we've always been told, this is the way you should do stuff, this is your level of success, this is what is defined as successful, focused, disciplined, knowing what you want. So how was it for you in your school and your university years?
Oh, I bloomed quite late. So back when I was in high school, I was actually one of the smallest or the shortest kids. And because you're as such and have a big mouth, you're the biggest target for bullies. And for me, even when a bully bullied me, I couldn't keep my mouth shut, because I knew deep down in my heart that what I was saying was correct. So I was always going from one friend group to the other, grazing through them, and just using it as ways to learn that, okay, this person is good for me, this person isn't good for me, because if it's deep down or resonating with my heart, I don't want to be in that group of friends. If it's not something I'm learning, I don't want to be there. And that kind of confidence at such a young age is what got people really triggered. So when I left high school, that's when my bloom happened into university. So at the age of 17 is when I grew at a growth spurt. I started working out a lot. I started embracing my essence of what I love to do, which is to listen to music, drive cars, dance, learn things, meet new people, learn from them, learn from their stories, learn from their mistakes, make my own. But of course, if there's someone willing to give advice, I always used to take that and help with it and run with it. In university, I was probably the only kid that would cross question the teacher a lot. I remember just prior to school and university, my teachers would be like, you're never afraid to ask a question. I was like, why should I be? If I don't understand, then of course I'm going to ask. And that was something that I really took pride in. No matter how uncomfortable someone got, if they're a teacher, they should be able to have answers to the questions I have. And if they're unwilling to answer them, then maybe they're not the right people to ask. And in university and in school, I was always the troublemaker. Not in a way that you usually see someone that causes trouble. I just caused trouble by walking into a room because of the energy I gave out. I think people always felt my presence, and that was very evident. And that's something that some people are gifted with. Some people learn how to adopt that. And I think by the grace of God, I was blessed with that. So yes, a troublemaker without doing anything.
Well, actually, when you're talking about, this thing that you gift that you had or have of, being able to sense things and all, did that make other people around you feel uncomfortable?
Very much so. Because as human beings, we're programmed to feel scared or reject something that we don't understand. And then when it still carries on, we actually want to destroy it. So, yes, it was quite an eventful time.
Okay, so now the next part that I find fascinating, and I think it's a very important thing that resonates with a lot of people, is relationships. So obviously you have had your share of relationships. So how would you define that period where you had an extended relationship other than with your parents, and how did that turn out?
Interesting journey. I've been around the block, as they say. I've had multiple connections with various people because I felt that this was my life's journey to learn from others. I actually, to be honest, learned how to be a man by speaking to women rather than following the men that we have in this world. So when I would talk to women, it would sort of allow me to self reflect. Am I really in the wrong, or is it something that they've been through past traumas that's being imposed onto me? Or if a person is coming to me, there is a reason why they're coming, there's a reason why someone is in my life. But at the same time, the challenging aspect of it was my life has always been about transformation. And that's to do with shifting timelines, which we can talk a little later about if you'd like me to elaborate. But it was more about ascending in this lifetime, going through various relationships, seeing the interactions, having fights, having arguments. And then I realized I have issues with certain people, and that's why this relationship won't work because of certain things they do. These people seem to have an issue with me as to who I am. So I was like, am I short selling myself, or am I thinking I'm too arrogant in this? So I think when we meet people that come into our lives, in essence, they show us a mirror of who we are. And that was the most important lesson. How we look at ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, is how people tend to perceive us, or they vibrate out of your life. And that was pretty much the journey. So yes, I learned a lot from intimate relationships. I learned a lot from friendships. I learned where who is truly there for you, and are relationships really balanced in majority of the situations. Because I was always an observer, observing other people's relationships helped me observe my relationships and carry this journey. So yes.
So you were able to resolve your relationship issues?
Sorry, you can say that again.
I said, were you able to resolve your relationship issues?
I tried, but a relationship is all to do with two people. You can't just be the only one resolving it. And funny thing is, when we start to do inner work and the other person doesn't do the inner work, there becomes a vibrational shift, and that is how relationships tend to sort of fall apart. So yes, it was challenging because I think at that point I wasn't as self-aware. I would always be like, why does this happen to me? Why am I not finding the right person in my life? When in essence, I had to find myself first to be able to form genuine relationships with people.
All right. So now we come from relationships to career, business, job, whatever. So, what was your first job?
My first job was, I was a late bloomer even in the job aspect. So in university after graduation, I distinctively remember the day I woke up, the next day I woke up after my graduation, I woke up to a newspaper cutting with some jobs highlighted. And then I wake up and my dad comes to the room and he goes, welcome to the real world, do the job search. And I was like, damn, I just graduated. So from then on, I was like, okay, I need to find a job. I need to find a job. And every friend of mine in the university was finding a job. Some were getting paid a certain amount, and they were just so proud of them getting the job. And it took me some time to find that job, but up until I did, it was actually one of the highest paying. I think I was in one of the top event organizers, which was actually right above my university. So I think God actually sends you in situations, and universe or God puts you in places and situations where a lot of us, because we're in our head, we don't see. So I was like, okay, events sounds interesting. I started going working for IQPC where I did marketing. Whilst I was doing marketing, my favorite aspect of that job was to forge relationships with people, and that's when I always had an ear out for what the salespeople were doing. And I think I had an inclination for sales. So that's when I said to the company, like, I'd like to move to sales. And they said, we don't have an opening. I was like, okay, see you then. And that's when I went on to the next company to do sales. And from there, it was history where I grew and grew and grew because I loved what I did there. So
So, when you were in this job of sales, was it going out and meeting corporates, or was it going out and meeting SMEs? What kind of work was it?
it was very specialized because when you're working in events, an event is obviously based on a special topic. And based on the program or the topic, we obviously like to see if there is inclination from clients to come through. So it ranged from SMEs all the way to multinationals with huge budgets. But it was all about connecting the dots of the value chain. So yes, I experienced all sorts, and it helped me understand the mindsets of entrepreneurs, new startups, people working in corporates, making decisions, to proper entrepreneurs that have a company of 500 people or more. So it just allowed me to see perspectives of how people in those job titles actually perform, how they are. But I always had this thing to connect with people on a personal level. So I used to adopt a very consultative sales approach because in my ideology, the work started after the contract was signed. That's when you deliver to the people. Because if you don't build a relationship with them, then they're just a number, and there's no depth to that. And I'm an avid learner, so I would have a good conversation with them, very friendly, very open, vulnerable, and then 25% of the talk would really be about work. The rest would just be getting to know the person.
All right. So you were progressing and forging relationships, as you said. You were also very observant about what was happening, what was not happening, and in that observation, did you come across that were people happy? Were people just doing the job because they needed to put food on the table and pay the bills? What were your observations of the people in the corporate sector that you were dealing with in terms of the events, etc.? What was your observation?
Majority of the time, I think the hardest thing for any one of us to do is to really drop that mask of what we are in our role. And with me, because I could always see past that, and I always had that kind of a personality, I felt that people were not just unhappy, they were unhappy about being unhappy. And that taught me a valuable lesson as well as to how do you get out of unhappiness as well. And I think majority of them were living on a frequency of survival. But I was also blessed to meet some amazing people that opened my eyes, helped me elevate my consciousness. But there were far and few people that were along those lines, which also showed me the rarity of how most of us tend to live an autopilot life. Work, come home, watch TV, have dinner, go to sleep. And then there were others that would actually tell me about their hobbies, tell me about new things that they do or things that they're working on. So, I understood the creative aspect of people as well, and how complex this human mind really is, and how we are in situations, how we adopt and deal with this thing called life. So it was interesting. It's always been an interesting journey, and I'm sure there's more to come.
Okay, so now we come to this platform that you have called Rise. So, number one, what brought about the birth of this idea in your mind, and why the word Rise?
Oh, you've taken me down memory lane to now tell you about this. Rise actually has been a blueprint of my journey. Rise, as the word as we know, is about rising. But I said, well, I need to go a little deeper than that because I'm a deep person. So why did this name Rise come? I broke it down into an acronym where R was to release what no longer serves. I was to integrate the masculine and feminine energy within our decisions, within our lives. It's got nothing to do with gender. I think it's qualities that both energies embody. So this was definitely a part of my journey as well, to embrace both. S, to surrender to the timing of the universe, as we said, divine timing, not the expensive watches we wear or spend so much money to buy to show the time. It's about knowing that the journey is not always going to be fast. You have to slow down, you have to take time. Two, coming to the E aspect of it, which is to emerge as your higher self, which is your most authentic self. And I feel that that's all of our journey. So I said, okay, let's create a blueprint. And because I was going through my spiritual awakening at that time, I was isolated for almost 6 months to a year, where everyone thought I was depressed. Funnily enough, those were the people that were depressed, and I was enjoying my solitude, and working on doing some shadow work. And whilst I was doing that, I built this blueprint of how do you go from feeling lost to finding your authentic self, or your purpose, which is you in essence. So I took my life's journey and put it into a program, and I said, okay, I would love to talk about all this, but why would anyone listen to me? So I started posting videos on social media. And I found that when I did that, I had mixed reactions from people, because at first they were like, oh, it's a guy, that has nice cars. I was known as the car guy. So my life journey was, okay, from 1 year to the next, which car have I driven? So I was in supercars throughout. And my friends would jokingly say, you've lived your midlife crisis in your early 20s. But this was just my journey, because I love driving. I love going fast. It's been a passion for me, and it will always be that. So I was like, okay, this is an aspect of my essence. I need to now induce my soul blueprint into this event, which is how do we go from feeling lost, doing the shadow work, to working on yourself, releasing what no longer serves, to move on to becoming the best version of ourselves. And I then got and spoke to almost 150 to 200 motivational speakers at that time, to understand the depth of why they say what they say. And my only question to each and every one of them was, what's most important to your heart? Why do you do what you do? And that allowed them to show me a glimpse of their inner child as to why they did what they did. And I was like, just imagine an event where people come in a place where there's no judgment, because we're all on our unique journey. We've all dealt with our own traumas. We all want to, at some point, release fear, but we find it challenging, because we see, how do we release fear? And it's actually not as hard when you think about it. You just have to lean to the edge of your fear to experience growth. So it's not that scary. And I just wanted people to feel that if I can do it, so can you, so can anyone else. And if we're not here to live life on a harmonious level, learn and grow from each other, then why are we really here? So I created this, where all these motivational speakers, I managed to get about 18 of them, 18 to 23, handpicked them, talking about their journey, and they absolutely loved it. And that's what created that essence, with a mix of a sustainable marketplace, giving SMEs a chance to a platform to sell their products, to showcase their products to all the people in the well-being sector would be coming through, alongside healing modalities like yoga, Reiki, sound healing, art healing, 9D breath work, just the holistic form of what it is. What is this life? Why are we here? And that's what showed people an essence of who they truly are. So yes, that was it.
It's very interesting to hear you speak that, because, being a young person going on this so called holistic path, many people think that this should be done after you've finished with all your worldly responsibilities and there's nothing left for you to do. And then you sort of take off on this path. And here you are, a very young person doing all of this. So, talking about, moving forward, being in the present and being stuck in the past, I'm sure you have come across a lot of people that sort of cling to the past.
Yes.
And so, what does that actually mean? Is it like, I don't want to let go? Is it like a safety blanket? What exactly is it that they're doing, and how can they move away from that?
You've obviously heard of the saying, where most of the audience already has, that a familiar devil is a lot more comforting than an unknown angel. And I think the unknown aspect of our life is what keeps us holding to the past. because it's familiar. We feel like if we hold on to that, then that's part of our identity. When actually our identity has nothing to do with holding on to the past or what people have told us about us. And unfortunately, the programming has been as such, right? How can you let go of the past? You have to allow yourself to go through a process where you grieve not only what happened to you, but also that version of you that allowed those things to happen, because we didn't know who we truly are. And when you see people and going through relationships and divorces and one after the other, I always like to tell people that when we break up from someone, as painful as that is, it's a time for us to self reflect. Because if we don't, then all we get to see is a different person with the same energy teaching us the same lesson, which is why we truly are here. But a lot of us like, okay, what is the lesson? But if you don't allow yourself time to sit down, look at the map of your life, and understand that this is a journey, not a race. And the decisions that I made at the age of 20 aren't the same as I would make in my 30s. But most of us don't take the time to go through that. We still feel, oh, I can't trust anything because everyone hurts me. That's the victim mindset that we are stuck in. And I feel like we were born in an upside down world. And there are people like me, like you, that are trying to show others that actually there's a better way to live. And suffering is a choice,
Quite true.
when you think about it. So that's why I
No,
said, okay, go on.
no, no, it's okay. Carry on. I'll ask the question later.
Sure. So I said suffering is a choice, and people go, "What do you mean suffering is a choice?" I've suffered a lot because based on decisions and what people have done to me, and I was like, "Yes, but we allowed it to happen." So if you say no, and you're firm on it, when you've had enough, that's when you let go the old and you allow space for the new to appear. And it's interesting because I've met so many people in this life that I've had to share this with. And I think that was part of my purpose, to help people get out of toxic cycles, which is basically less about the other person, but more about us as human beings. And that's what got me to say, okay, this is my purpose. I can see this, I can sense this. I've done this for myself. And as scary as it was to embrace the unknown, I managed to do it, and it was nice. And that's what brings us to the present moment, that you only trust that things would be good.
Yeah.
So
One thing, Amit, that I have noticed, and I'm sure you have as well, is this thing called needs and wants. So people always need something, and they very they also psych themselves into the wanting becoming a needing, right? So can you talk a little bit about the distinction about need and want?
the biggest challenge was for me to be able to convey this to people, that needs are actually basic things that we need to survive, and wants are things that we desire. And the mistake that a lot of us have made is we choose to think that the want is actually a need. Like, I need this iPhone, I need this car, I need this job, I need to have this girl, I need to have this. So I'm like, that's the distinction of wanting. And I think it starts from when, as a child, when parents give children generally what they want, most of the time they tend to want and keep wanting more. And you know as well as I do that wants never end. Needs, when they're satisfied, then you can actually live a content life. For example, food on the table. You have twice meals twice a day or 3 times a day. In case of me, it's 5, 6 times a day. I love to eat, and it just shows me that the essence of life is fulfilled when your needs are met. And from there, the foundation is built. And that's when we can go towards what we truly want. Because most of the time, we don't even know what we want. We just keep wanting it. It's like, why does a dog run behind a car? What is it going to do when it catches it? It doesn't know. So I think that's where the distinction comes between needs and wants. And I feel like a lot of us should prioritize that to find true fulfillment.
Very well put, because I do financial planning, and I always talk about the need and the want. And it's amazing how people will translate the want into a need. I was like, I need this handbag, I need to go on a holiday. I need this piece of jewelry. I need that, whatever it is. It's all about a need. But the most important and the basic need about financial independence is never there, which I
True.
find, people's priorities are a little skewed, I think. And it has a lot to do with a lot of outside information that we are bombarded with. You need to look like something, you need to do this in order to be accepted, in order to be successful, in order to be seen, to be happy, all of that. So there's a lot of pressure on all of us from external forces. So when we're dealing with all of that, how would you help people make that distinction about the need and the want?
I think the best way to find answers from people is to ask them questions. I learned this again, once again, because some lessons need to be learned. Being in sales, I'm always used to asking questions to people. So I think that's what makes me understand that when I transition from sales to becoming a life coach, actually, I don't use life coach or transformational coach as much. I'm a student of life because I ask questions. And when you ask questions, you get the answers, if not from one person or the other. So that's one aspect of showing people who they truly are, what they've achieved in life so far. Because we always seem to forget, right, how far we've come in our journey. Sometimes we should just sit back and celebrate those small wins. If you want to break a bad habit, you stop the mini habits that lead you to that big bad habit. And I think that's the essence of understanding our presence on this earth and showing people that mirror so that they can self reflect. There's a joke told by someone that I'm a walking spiritual awakening for most. So I think this has got to do with my innate understanding of what it is. If I were to have asked this question, because I ask these questions to myself, I'm sure people do it themselves, but we don't have the answers. But it's how the question is asked, right? That's what gets people to open up. That's what gets people to ask themselves by themselves. And I would never say to someone that, okay, I want the answer. No, I'll say, no, marinate on it. Ask yourself. And if you get the answer, great. That's my purpose served. If doing certain things makes you happy, you should fulfill those things. Because
Wonderful.
things change, our ideas change, and how we look at life changes. So I may like something now, I may not like something tomorrow, and that's okay. It's my life. I get to choose. But people go like, "Oh, he's all over the place." No, I think all of us are like that. We just don't want to. We just don't want to admit. There's
Yes,
a positive side of the brain that says the nice things. There's a negative side of the brain that says those things. We choose what we observe and what we pick. So
very
yes, that
true.
I ask people questions.
Okay, so Amit, we're coming to the end of the show, and I'd like very much for you to share. We talked about the kind of programs that you want to do, uh, especially in the corporate side, because you've observed so much. So, could you just share some pointers on that?
So when I started the Rise event, the blueprint, I realized that in the course of doing the press conference and having people ask me questions, that actually this was more of a movement. Now, how do I take this movement, which was structured towards wellness, in as an event where we were getting people from the health and well-being sector, the influencers, and trying to transform their lives, and it showed to work. And whilst I was in corporate, I saw a lot of people living in the frequency of fear. And because I'm opposed to that, I feel like fear is important, but we shouldn't get stuck in it. We shouldn't allow fear to dominate us because we are more than what we feel. And I said, okay, when I was in corporate, I see people with priorities very skewed, where they'd like to look good at work, but not for their partners. Because we talk, we spend time, we go to drinks after work. So we used to talk a lot. And I realized that, think about this, 75% of the day we spend is spent at work. And looking at the current condition of mental wellness and autoimmune diseases amongst men and women, why with all these modalities, why isn't it working? So I said, okay, what if I were to combine my business coaching skills, my life coaching skills? I'm a certified business coach, so I understand that. But whilst I was in corporate, I also learned how to lead with emotional intelligence. And I think that's something that I think the world needs, because when you understand the other person, you're sensitive to their needs and wants, it allows you to become a better person. And I wanted to incorporate that into a corporate training program because there are challenges that we face with technology advancements. We are all evolving as beings. We're trying to figure out who we are. How could I create a holistic solution for corporate where we address the challenges that are faced by corporates, but the essence of Rise, essence of knowing who you truly are, is included into that so that people find their authenticity and aren't afraid to take steps to progress in their career, leave when they don't see that it's not working for them rather than having to stick in an unhappy job. Because we know, since we're spending 75% of our day at workplace, it affects how our well-being is and how we deal with our relationships later on. So I then worked with the same people that were part of Rise, some of the good ones that I felt would add value in the corporate side of things, that could give me guidance in how do I take this forward. And I said, okay, great. I can mix the two and create something unique. And if I don't create something unique, then I'm not being true to my soul. So what's the point? So I'm like a little child that looks at things and tries to put them all together, just trying to have fun and see what comes of it. And that's where it formed. And whoever I've shown it to has loved the concept because it's never been done. Because we're so used to surface level things, and I would like to make a deeper impact in people's lives just to help uplift them, to know that yes, we are at the workplace, but we don't have to feel judged. We should be able to speak up. We can learn to respond to situations rather than react. Like, oh, my boss said this to me, you're shouting at your wife or your partner, whoever that is, and that relationship gets messed up because of that. Because it's frustration and stress. And a lot of the issues we face, including a drop in our immunity, is because of stress. So, how do we address that and remove it from the root? By being our authentic self.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's take this whole thing and let's see what comes of it. I might fail, but I'll fail doing something I love rather than failing in something that doesn't really resonate with me. So I was like, okay, let's do this, and that's where this was formed.
Wonderful, my dear. Thank you so much for sharing that because there are quite a few pointers in what you've just shared. And those people who are going to watch us later on, are going to pick up some really, I think, precious gems that you sort of just given us just like that. So thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure,
And
thank you.
obviously, we're going to be in touch and hopefully we'll work together. Keep shining, keep rising. And if, as you said, if it doesn't work, so what? But at least you tried. Because if you don't try, you never know where it's going to take you. So, on that happy note, thank you very much once again on being offbeat. Stay offbeat, remain offbeat, remain off track, because that's where the fun is. Take care.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, Amit, all about doing things in a different way. So, what did we learn? We learned you should be vulnerable. We learned that you should ask questions. We also learned from him that it's okay to fail. It's not the end of the world. It's okay to say, I really don't like this job. I want to try something else. Be kind to yourself. Self love, self awareness. Everything, your entire world is you. That's what I learned from him. And when you are happy in your world, if you've got a good balance, your health is fine, your thinking is clear, you have a better sense of purpose, and you can actually go ahead. So, life is all about experimenting, and don't feel bad if it doesn't work for you. You should feel bad if you haven't tried it. So get off the fence, get off bait, get off track, do something different, which perhaps you really wanted to do but didn't have the courage. But today we know that it doesn't take much. It takes that little switch in your head that says, okay, fine, I'm going to try it. Because that's what Amit has done. And he's living proof that you can enjoy life, you can be healthy, you can be strong, you can be focused, and most of all, you can be happy. So, till next time on Offbeat with Sandy, enjoy life till we see you again. God bless.